Hi there, this is Quinn James. Apologies in advance for the low quality of my mic. I'll get a better one if it turns out that people really care about what I have to say. So anyway, this is the first video in my stream, uh, except for a little demo that I did of Aerolith, which is not so much my main game. It's a sort of exercise that I do to train for my main game, which is Scrabble. Scrabble is a really cool and fun and deep and strategic game, and the first video that I'm going to show on this channel is actually a game where I lost. But I think that it's one of the most interesting games that I've played, at least in recent months, and I got to make some cool plays, and my opponent got to make some cool plays too, and I think that overall it was just a really interesting and entertaining and game that I could easily spend an hour talking about, but I think for my first video will try and make it a bit shorter and just focus on the high points. And so I'm just getting my information down on the right panel so that I don't spoil who won the game, which comes up when you by default when you go into your history and pull the game up. So as you can see, these are some numbers that I have. As far as my real life ratings, they don't mean anything. Not really. All it means is that somebody thought that you beat certain players a certain percentage of the time, and that was worthy of a certain arbitrary number. Doesn't indicate how much you won or how much respected you are really. So I'm not going to waste any time talking about that. I'm just going to go toward the objective, which is trying to win this game. By the way, this game is being played using the Collins Scrabble Words 2015 lexicon, and it's being played on a website called the Internet Scrabble Club, which you can find at isc.ro. And I don't agree with everything that they do over there as far as ISC, but it still remains the best place to play serious competitive Scrabble, short of playing live. I know a lot of people, especially in the economy these days, don't have the opportunity to play serious live Scrabble. I certainly rarely do, so I definitely appreciate having that option. As for the game, this is my opening rack. It doesn't look super promising, but when you have a Z on an opening rack, you immediately want to see if you can get the Z at either one of these two spots, because if you do that, you're guaranteeing yourself 40 plus points. And in this case, I have the word Zupon for 52, and there's really no other significant options. And show the Get Examiner to show the plays, and there's really, again, there's nothing. You just gotta play Zupon. That's an easy turn, if you know the word. And I like to open vertically. A lot of people make fun of me for that. Let them come. It amuses me that people even care. The reason that I initially decided to do it was just so that I could, because almost everybody opens horizontally. I wanted to be able to see both types almost equally, so that I didn't get disoriented by either kind of opening. And that's worked, but it's a very minor factor. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that anybody do it or not do it. I just find it really amusing that people take it so seriously. Granted, most of it is kind of, overblown, pretend caring, but on some level, some people do kind of get annoyed. That if your opponent's getting annoyed at something that, doesn't even matter, like fine. Who cares? If you're not like cheating or doing anything unethical, and it's just you play in an annoying way, based on some minor factor, then who cares? That's to your advantage, if anything. So my opponent, I didn't get to see my opponent's racks obviously during the game. That's not how Scrabble works, but my opponent doesn't seem to have a lot of promising options. My opponent plays Fae, keeping 4 vowels, which I'm not too sure about. I think about playing Octavo here, which is a word, but I wasn't 100% sure it was a word. I didn't. I played Coat, which is a decent option. There are other options. I didn't really want to play Avo here because it's just kind of too open. Like if your opponent has an X, easy 50 points. This kind of easy lane here. And I just would rather play Coat. So Coat works okay. My opponent responds with Zaire, which, again, I'm not too into. He probably should have played off more of his vowels. I play Hoi over here, being really defensive. It's not the best play. The best play is Quitch for 47. Again, was not sure that was a word. I'm not completely the most studied up I've ever been, so occasionally we'll chicken out on some words that I've definitely seen before. And it's just unusual this game because it's happened twice already. It usually doesn't happen nearly that much. I've usually got a better memory than that. But anyway, Hoi isn't too bad because it does play it pretty cagey. It keeps defensive. If I draw an E, I at least have quiche, which I know is a word. Other nice things could happen. I could be able to put my Q here. I could have a parallel down here. Play through down the R, or my opponent could play something that sets me up. Turns out my opponent does not. My opponent plays this for 14. Which is more or less fine. I play Fakir for 28. This play is also fine. I saw it immediately, and there's really not a whole lot of other options on that turn. I'll get Examiner to show me some other options. There's keys up here for 39, which I didn't want to play because if your opponent has an I, they can make QI up here, play for 30 plus, and open another lane down here, which I probably won't be able to hit because I have very few tiles that make 3-letter words where I is the first word in the second, and it's an extension of a 2-letter word. Like if my opponent plays put like an F here or an N here or a T here or a D here. In fact, the only thing that my opponent could put here that I'm leaving anything that could go on the end is an S. It could play IS and ISO. But most of the time, I'm not going to, unless I draw something, like, for example, if he plays an N, I could draw another N for N. If he plays a D, I could draw an E for I'd. But most of the time, I'm not going to be able to parallel over here to the triple, but my opponent might be able to. And so, basically, if I play QIS, then I'm gaining 12 extra points, but I'm also potentially losing out on 60 or 70 over here that my opponent could just sort of take, and could even, if he's being cagey, wait to play here until he has something, a a follow-up or a good chance there of a follow-up on the 15 column. So I definitely wanted to swerve that. And aside from that, then Fakir is definitely easily the best play. Now my opponent does not make the best play here. The best play is probably something like Staining for 82 down here, hooking Fakirs. But he does make the coolest play, and that is Entrained for 68 and 9-letter bingo, the first 9-letter bingo in this game. Usually you can go many games without seeing a 9-letter bingo. I think if two players are both playing optimally, then they can probably expect at least one of them to play a 9-letter bingo maybe once in every 10 games, 10 or 12, something like that. It's both players combined. I personally play about one every 30 or so. So I think I would be closer to about one every 20 if I were playing absolutely optimally, which, as you can see already from this game, I don't always. So this is a bit of a weird rack. There's no room for violin. You could play something like 5, but all the different options, like Fino, Vino, that sort of fish, are not. They always leave at least one awkward tile. The F, the doubled I's, the O, and the V are all awkward. Foil is a strong candidate because ISV is not a very bad leave as they go. It's not super positive, but it's not really negative either. The S helps it out. I'd say it's maybe worth between 1 and 2 points or something like that, over leaving nothing. So that's an option. 5 is also an option, leaving soil. The X is still out, so I don't want to do this because, again, easy 50 points for XI. And just don't like this little lane that it opens up. Even though I'm technically behind, I'm still playing like I'm ahead because I have a little bit of the tempo. I have the potential to leave pretty good stuff. So I end up playing what I was seriously considering playing before my opponent gave me all these spots with Entrained. But this time I can do it for many more points, which is to play Sif over here for now 42. And that gives me a 35-point lead. My opponent, to respond, has a lot of vowels again. And again, kind of doesn't get rid of enough of them, leaving 3 vowels, and now I don't know if I would have done that. With my response, I noticed that there's not a whole lot of lanes that score without a bingo. So I really want to block this that he's just opened. There's like a parallel. Could play something like Bold. Score 24, get the B on here. Instead, I end up playing, I believe, Viold for 22, which is 2 points less. Yeah, that's what I played. And the reason that I do that... Now let's go back and look at what Bold does to the board here. Just like Viold, it does take the 1S hook. It is slightly more kind of parallel-y because you could, if you have an A or an O, you can go on the B and play like Joel, Jol, making OV and LOWE. or something like that. And VOLD doesn't really give you that option because the V blocks this tile. But that's not really why I'm doing it. The reason I'm really doing it is because this Y right here. This Y makes the B better than the V, because there are only a few tiles that you can put to the left of this Y to make use of it as a bingo lane. There's the A, there's the O, there's the K, good luck with that, there's the M, there's the F, but there's no F's left, and there's the B. Now, most of the time, when you're starting a bingo with a B, you'll be starting with it. Like, you won't be in second position unless you've got to draw something like Ebrios or Ebriates, that family of words. Most of the time, you will be sticking something out in this column. So these could be blocked, and they won't necessarily be great bingos, but the V doesn't do anything for us. There's no comparable lane where the V is helpful. So I decided I want to shed the V instead of the B, and the best way to do that, in my opinion, in this position, is to play VOLD. At least of the ones I saw. Now this is another time where I miss a play, and this time the play is Bovid. There's actually two different spots for Bovid that Examiner points out. The higher scoring play is this one, but what that does with a D here, slotting it right, in this user-friendly place, very easy to bingo to the D, not super hard to triple through it, which again, I don't know that my opponent has a ton of vowels after Way. Way could be a fishing play. So that's disastrous. I really wasn't even looking at plays over here, but I should have been looking at plays over here. And so Bovid was an annoying miss. I'd rather have the BN leave than the LN leave, but still, Bovid is definitely better than VOLD. But I think VOLD is probably, it's competitive. It's like my other two misses this game, it's not a huge miss. It drops me back a couple points, a few points, but it's not like, they're not like major blunders. And, it's the kind of thing that you'll do when you're a little bit under-reviewed, which I am, and you want to limit those, but at the same time, you can't stress out too much if you make a few, suboptimal plays in a game. It's annoying, considering that I'm uploading this for YouTube, that I've made so many suboptimal plays, but that's also part of the reason that I'm uploading it, because I don't want to show you a perfect game. I don't want to show you a game where I scored 600 points and played perfectly, which honestly there tends to be a correlation to that. If you score a bunch of points, well, if you score a super high amount of points, you're probably playing really good. If you score a pretty low amount of points, you might be playing pretty good too, because you're struggling to get every point. If you're scoring like 490, then you actually might have made a few blunders in there. It's complicated, But yeah, I didn't want to show you, my best ever performance. There is a really cool play coming up, but as you'll see, it was actually a mistake. So my opponent plays Rax and makes the spot even more dangerous. But since I've kept the B, I now have one of the few hooks for Ren, which is Bren. There's also the Y that goes there. Again, Brain is not the absolute best place to absolutely the best, not absolutely the best word to use there. Nabber, which we play here, which I saw but was not sure it was a word. For 43 is the best, but brain is fine. In some ways, brain is even nicer than playing Nabber, because Nabber does open this little fairly user-friendly spot for 7-letter bingos. So, I play brain. I'm pretty happy with it. It really limits this whole quadrant of the board, and I'm winning. So I'm like, fine. My opponent has Ruil on his rack. Can't play it. Goes with Lauer, which is sort of fine again. This is another really tough one with a bunch of plays that are close together. I play Deb, which is, fine. I was kind of looking at this spot mainly because I was worried that my opponent would play here, play a 4 here. This something like if I were to have played Deeb and make it and set up an S hook or something that might be tough to block or something. So I wanted to put a 3 down there to make it a little bit harder to set up one of those S hooks. I also wanted to play here to limit the IFS ifs, because you could play 7-letter bingos starting with an S down here, and that you really can't anymore because Ode doesn't hook anything. My opponent, unfortunately, goes over and does exactly what I was afraid of on the other side of the board with a J for 40 points, and it's rather tricky to block. So I don't. I play T, which is probably not the correct play. Examiner is of relatively little help here. I'm going to ask the Nix/Erebos engine what it thinks is the best play. I don't know if I'm going to agree with it. I was hoping to draw something like Technoid, but even if I draw that, it doesn't score very many points. It scores 28, and it puts this hot spot. So what Nix likes is Endbrain 5e, which leaves 3 vowels and a consonant, opens another bingo spot, albeit not a great one. Doesn't close off this L. It might be better than T, but... Or no, wait, was I analyzing the correct play? I might have been analyzing this play. Yeah, I was analyzing this play, where I played 8, which... I actually think 8 is fine. Let me analyze the correct play. Yeah, at that point I wanted to play Age because I had good bingo tiles and I wanted to open another lane. Oh right, yeah, this was the play where I missed Tetra, that's right. Or rather, I saw it, but I wasn't sure Tetra was a word. This doesn't happen to me usually very many times, but it happened to me at least 4 times this game. That I see a play, I'm not sure it's a word. Again, a relatively poorly played game for me, but I think I'm still making mostly pretty solid plays. T was an exception, because there really was no plan, there was nothing I was trying to do except avoid opening the board any further, or making things any worse. The plays that turn are all very hard. There's a tween which opens this and all this, and it's like, really? Do you really want to do that? A lot of similar plays like that. 14L Notes, which also opens wildly. And 12 Tat, which also opens wildly. It's like, really? Like, not getting Tetra, which is a 5 that comes up very rarely, by the way. Not one of the most useful 5s. One I've definitely seen, but again, very rare that this would come up and really mess you up, but this time it really screws me over, because there's like no reasonable play that doesn't really mess things up other than that. So yeah, Losh is fine, which the Anagram of Paul's I challenge just because it's 5-point penalty and I'm not 100% sure. An Aid, I keep a tone, I'm fairly happy with that play. I think it's actually better than Inbrain, but whatever. Now here's the play where I play a spectacular play and it actually turns out to be wrong. The correct play here is to extend every to everyone for 42. That leaves 2 user-friendly bingo lanes open. This one going to the L, starting at 1H and going to the L. This one that I'm creating starting at 08 and going to the E. I'm leaving a blank AGT. My opponent is blocking despite not having a very big lead, so probably doesn't have spectacular tiles. I do have spectacular tiles, so he's blocked like Elongate and everything. He's blocked my bingos that I would ordinarily see. Like he's blocked my normal type bingos. There's actually nothing to the L, but I spend a lot of time looking through the L. Because I'd rather bingo to the L. I don't spend a lot of time looking at anything besides a bingo, though, because I actually did see a bingo. And the bingo that I saw was ridiculous. A really, really, kind of a common word in the UK, not at all a common word in the US. I only know it because it's a high probability 9. Sort of high probability 9. I was super pleased to see it, but I knew when I saw it that if there were any other bingos, that they'd probably be better than it, because didn't really do what I liked to the board. But again, yet another mistake. I don't see everyone. I don't even look over there because I'm so pleased with myself for having found Monch 2 for 68. Very, very cool play. I'm proud to show off that I found Monch 2 with the blank M for 68. Probably really threw off my opponent. The opponent was probably like, whoa. Even though my opponent's played a 9 here, a disconnected 9, a common word, and trained is not on the same level as Monch 2. So my opponent may be thrown off a little bit. But regardless, my opponent's next move should be like Mandaka for 46. But unfortunately, because of what I've done and because of what tiles I end up drawing, I really don't have a lot of chance to win this game. Made is just kind of like, it just kind of goes down. Does what any reasonable play would have done, which is block me from playing Unplates and the new word Tailspun, which were available. Nuptials wouldn't quite have worked. So, couple options here now. Now even though I've just played Monch 2 and so excited, I'm now down by 4 still. There's 4 tiles in the bag. If I play up to this triple with something like Pilum for 21, I empty the bag, then my opponent knows exactly what tiles I have. That's really the biggest concern here. Bingos to the L or not bingo to the L are unlikely for either of us. Not really worried about blocking that, not really worried about any of that stuff. Just worried about getting to the endgame, trying to win the endgame. So I consider a number of plays. Um, I consider something like tup or tups or sup or along those lines. I don't really want to do those plays because they tend to give a strong likelihood of my opponent drawing something like stock or smock or tax, tackies, toegate, just a bunch of possibilities that score a lot and or use a lot of tiles coming down from this G1. So what I prefer to do is to either hope that my opponent can only take this spot with something that sets me up for a big play down here, or something similar to that. For similar reasons, I don't want to play Puss over here, which would normally be a very good high equity play because my opponent might have the O for Opus. If I were really down, I might want to risk that and just hope I draw it. Yeah, but again, some of the plays that might as otherwise seem strong, like tups, playing off the S, punts, keeping the S playing off a bunch of tiles, a bunch of these consonants. The problem is they empty the bag, so preferably you want to play 3 tiles here rather than 4. Leave 1 in the bag so that your opponent has to empty the bag, and you automatically get first chance of knowing exactly what the opponent has, which is a big advantage in most endgames. Another play I do consider is PIS for 25. That is also a good play. The difficulty with PIS is that Lunt is not a very good leave for an endgame. I'm going to have a hard time playing out all my tiles, even if my opponent puts something at G1 or otherwise does something, very friendly to me. So I'd actually, if I'm going to empty the bag, which eventually I decide none of these plays score enough, I might as well empty the bag. Then I don't want to just empty the bag by playing 4 tiles. I want to play a ton of tiles. I want to, for example, if I play 5 tiles, leaving 2, then I only have 6 tiles going into the end game, so it's going to be automatically easier for me to bingo. The other thing is I'm a little bit worried about plays up here. Plays through this NA, stuff like that. And I don't want to play punts because play like Monk those are terrible. Honestly, in retrospect, if I could do it all over again, I probably would just play pies, but in this case I play unpile for 16. Unpile is a bit of a gamble because if I was able to draw one more vowel than I did, like not draw this G and draw, say, an I instead, or an O, I would have been in pretty good shape in this endgame. But I don't manage to do that. I only leave 1 vowel, and it was always the risk of leaving 1 vowel, but this time I would even get like 10 extra points. So in that situation, it probably was a blunder. But again, I had really been struggling this game. There was a lot of tough plays, and so I was kind of low on time. So my opponent finds a pretty much guaranteed win here. It plays Miso for 29. The thing with Miso is it leaves Keg in 2 spots. Keg over here forming Junk. Keg over here forming Aim and Nag. So, that's I can't block them both. There's no possible, you know, way on heaven and earth to block them both. Certainly not with the tiles I have. I don't even know if it's geographically possible to block them both. You would have to mess up junk and mess up this at the same time. So maybe if Jun took like front hook Jun and Jun did not play junk, then I could have blocked both of those bots. But that is not the case. So I find my highest scoring plays, which is Clower, Zupan's Craze. And Craze, I believe, was actually added to the dictionary in 2015. So that's nice knowledge on my part, but it doesn't save me. My opponent just plays Keg, goes out, and wins by 20. So, that's a lesson. In a way. It's... maybe the lesson is just, keep up your studying. Don't ever, chicken out any words. Don't ever make a wrong play, but that's a really high standard to maintain, especially in casual games on ISE where you don't really expect, I didn't necessarily get up for this game the same way I would have for Virtuals. Munch 2 just sort of fell into my lap, and then the game became kind of a game after that, and then I tried really hard in the end game and fell up short because I didn't have enough time to consider all the different options properly. And even if I had played pies, I might have lost anyway. But that's there's other lessons in this game as well. Like the lesson that you shouldn't give up, and just because you're, sitting in what looks like a situation where you can't bingo, where it looks like there's only one bingo lane and you just don't have anything there, and you can keep looking, that studying nines does sometimes pay off, even though most of the time it doesn't. And also that even if your opponent plays an awesome 9, then you might still, come back and win the game. But, if you go over the whole course of the game, there's, a bunch of different, little tiny lessons to learn. And lessons like, what do I do if I'm not sure of which, believe it or not, I actually considered playing something like Revo for 14, but I actually managed to see Fakir in the pool, an unseen pool of tiles. So I knew I didn't want to block it, but I also didn't want to make things super easy for my opponent, especially playing through this R. So I could have played O up here and obstructed that R less. I ended up playing white. Scores a little bit more, obstructs the R a little bit more. Fakir stays there. And I end up actually drawing Fakir. Stuff like playing Sif favoring score over leave in that situation. Plays like Deb, which I thought was a really subtle play. Even if my opponent tries to make something of it, they could play D for 7, but it would only give them, again, 7 points to try and set that up. Could try and play something hooking late in, like Need, but then I'd get the first crack at blocking it. Most of the plays you can make to try and open that little quadrant up kind of fall flat. In the event, my opponent gets a 40 and a 47 point play, and I actually have to end up opening that quadrant. So yeah, I guess that's kind of my point, that these games are deep. Like this random game that I did, that at first I wasn't really, necessarily giving it my all. Um, there were still deep considerations that, to some extent consciously, to some extent unconsciously, were sort of going through my head as I was trying to play them. And that ultimately gave me, in the end, much better shot to win the game, as if I hadn't been considering those things. Things didn't always work out in the ways that I'd hoped. The shots that I took didn't always come to pass, and my opponent, in fact, drew pretty well, but I guess the ultimate lesson is stay awake. You never know what's going to drop into your lap, and if I had managed to seize everything that did drop in my lap, I probably could have escaped with a victory. As it was, the whole sum total of that game, I'm relatively happy with how I played it. You have a limited time in a game. There's always going to be blunders, but sometimes at least they can be cool blunders, and I think Launch 2 was definitely the coolest blunder that I've ever made. So yeah, this has been Quinn James, aka Volocris, and I'm signing off for my first analysis of a Scrabble game uploaded to YouTube. And hopefully, if you guys enjoy this, not scripted at all, very off the cuff, just sort of rambling about this game that I enjoyed. If I get positive feedback, or possibly even if I don't, because I like doing it, I might upload some more of these. So anyway, yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe if you want to see more of these. Definitely enjoyed doing this more than I thought I would. And I will be back soon.